Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So we're back now on beta this time. As we mentioned in the Frost video, I did some PTR stuff for DK DPS specs because I was kind of hoping and still writing the Mad Hopium that Guardian and Balanced Druid are getting some talent tree updates along with the Druid class tree. And so my Druid videos that I had planned, I've kind of canned and I'm waiting on those updates. Fingers crossed they come this week. So in the meantime, I decided to keep up some WoW videos going, that I would look into Frost and Unholy's DK, because if I'm looking at a third character, because I have Monk, I have Druid, probably playing Druid right now, but Druid Monk are going to probably be my sort of first two characters. Then I look for a third character that I could just maybe sneak into a weekly key or like do LFR raids on, or if we're doing like normal alt runs and someone else wants to tank a raid, maybe I grab my DK and do this. I'm also considering Arms and Fury Warrior. You know, wanted to look at these specs. I'm not going to be doing a video on Blood because I don't really have any interest in playing it in Dragonflight. And there's plenty of videos out there that talk about the fact that Blood, in short, is going to be pretty good. In this video, we're going to talk about Unholy. Now, Unholy's been kind of in the news for the DKs because it basically got an entire revamp to how its talent tree works. And how the cooldowns in it specifically function. Because right now in Shadowlands, you can get some really weird Apocalypse and Dark Transformation timings that don't line up with things like Army of the Damned. So outside of like when all of them are off cooldown after sitting around for a while or at the start of a raid fight, you're not really going to be able to get all your cooldowns going off at once. So your burst windows as Unholy are really awkward because you don't really have any outside of the execute phase, because Soul Reaper is Soul Reaper. Blizzard has really kind of cleaned that up a lot to where Dark Transformation and Apocalypse and Summon Gargoyle, which is back, really particularly line up really well. But particularly Apocalypse, Army of the Damned, or Army of the Dead rather, and then Dark Transformation all kind of work out to be like really well done overall. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go over Unholy talents, and then we're going to quickly set up some keybinds, and then I'm going to kind of play around with both a Mythic Plus oriented build that I think is going to function well, and a raid oriented build that I think will function fairly well, tuning and adjustments and all that stuff aside. So in this spec tree, of course, we get Raised Dead to start. We are going to grab Cleaving Strikes. I'm going to go ahead and grab Enfeeble because Control Undead is a DPS loss for Unholy, because that means you cannot use your Dark Transformation, so it just throws out one of your cooldowns. And Sacrificial Pact you don't generally want to use because you want your ghoul around. So Brittle kind of becomes, or Enfeeble rather, kind of becomes just the best option on this talent row. It's a little bit of a defensive thing, potentially getting 15% DR for 6 seconds. It's really RNG. All three of these talents for Unholy to me feel really weak, and I'd like to see something maybe tweaked about this little section that could be something that's stronger for Unholy. You're just kind of throwing this talent point away for RNG DR and an RNG movement slow. It's kind of maddening. Of course, we grab Brittle because you are grabbing a new capstone. They moved Army of the Damned out of a capstone trait and put back in Super Strain, the old Shadowlands legendary that Blood DKs used for a while. So you're getting 3 diseases. So here, basically, this increases the chance that Brittle procs for you. Right. Then, of course, we grab Death Strike for the sustain. We grab AMS for a defensive. I'm going to go ahead and you can grab either March of Darkness or Improved Death Strike. Even A and B kind of just depends on what you need for the moment, what you need for the raid fight. Generally speaking, I think March of Darkness is going to be the most generally useful talent. But Improved DS and Anti-Magic Barrier might have some play in other kind of niche scenarios, kind of fight-dependent stuff. Of course, you want Veteran of the Third War to open up the bottom row talents. Of course, we're going to grab Might of Thessarian. Clenching Grasp is here, but I don't necessarily like it for PvE. I think there's some niche scenarios where you can grip away like an Inspired Mob just to help out things there. So there are some niche scenarios where it could see play, but generally speaking, I think this is going to be more settled into the PvP side, and even then, PvPers may not even like it because they can just change ice. So, someone more versed, please tell me. This row you can grab for Mythic Plus. Generally speaking, Grip of the Dead is going to be a good choice. You could take another defensive in Lichborn, which right now just grants Leech, so you could use it after you take some like rotting damage, or to help tick off with rotting damage. Think of like Zolgamex's Blood Siphon. You can hit Lichborn while that's going, you get 15% leech. This could help make that leech also do 15% DR in a situation like that. So potentially really good talent for Mythic Plus. Grip of the Dead, also very valid for Mythic Plus. And on Holy Ground, you want more haste, because even though this spec is going to be very heavily mastery based, I think, for both builds, I think ultimately haste is still going to be a really important stat for Unholy DK. So getting more when you're inside Death and Decay, which you do use often as Unholy, for both single target and raid situations, I think this is going to be just a really good talent in general. Of course, we're going to grab AMZ, we'll grab Death Pact and Wraithwalk, just because these are strong mobility talents. And then we're going to grab, of course, Chains of Ice, Mind Freeze. For Mythic Plus, you could grab Blinding Sleet or Anticipation. For raid, I think you're generally going to grab Permafrost. So we'll kind of focus on a more raid-oriented build to start with. And then we'll switch over to like a Mythic Plus oriented build. Grab Icebound Fortitude. You do want the crit strike chance and Glooming Ward. You're going to want Runic Attenuation. You're going to grab Blood Draw and Will in the Necropolis. And then for a raid build, you grab Unholy Bond into Soul Reaper with Icy Talons into Empowered Rune Weapon. You do probably switch out Soul Reaper for A-Bomb Limb and Rune Mastery as needed on fights that demand heavy grips, so like Jailer P2 for example. But if heavy grips are in a case where you have multiple Death Knights, or you have a Frost DK and an Unholy DK, Frost DK and Blood DK generally speaking are going to grab A-Bomb Limb almost all the time. There are some Soul Reaper Blood single target builds out there, but you know, we'll see if that's actually going to be something that you force long term. So, but for pure single target, think a Ragolon, a Skolex type fight where you're only fighting one thing at a time. I think Soul Reaper is going to have much more value than A-Bomb Limb in the long run. Now, the great thing about the Unholy tree is that for the spec tree, there are different builds that I think play really well with each other. There's the AoE focused Festermite sort of Loon build, and then there's the more raid oriented build, which is going to focus on summoning Gargoyle and basically empowering all your ghouls. So of course we take Fester Strike, Scourge Strike, Raise Dead, Outbreak, and DT. Unholy Blight still going to be very important to get down to this side of the tree. For the Gargoyle build, you actually want the extra 20 runic power, because the more runic power you can dump in your Gargoyle window, the better. We're also going to grab Infecting Claws, just because it allows for movement down this side of the tree, which is what we need. Of course, you grab Apocalypse. We're also going to grab Replenishing Wound to get that little bit of extra runic power generation. And then we'll grab things like Unholy Command to get the extra 15 seconds on Dark Transformation to reduce its cooldown. It's baseline 1 minute, now it's 45 seconds. So the windows for Unholy Death Knight are working very similar to like Arms Warrior, where baseline Arms Warrior you have like Colossus Smash on 45 seconds with like Avatar and like Bladestorm on like 90-second windows. So you use 2 Colossus Smash for every Bladestorm Avatar that you run. That's kind of the build that I run on live right now, and I really like it. Unholy, you're kind of doing the same thing. You have 45-second Dark Transformation, you have 90-second Apocalypse, so you're kind of matching these up all the time. Into an Army of the Dead, of course, which has 8-minute cooldown that gets reduced by Army of the Dead. Now, of course, here, Apocalypse also with Army of the Damned, which we are going to take. But first, for a single target, we're going to grab Magus of the Dead. We're also going to grab Sudden Doom. And we're going to grab Unholy Pact. I want Defile to be good. I really do. Defile has not really ever been good. So I think Unholy Pact is still going to be your best overall game, because you're getting 5% strength. It's not so much about the chain, the Hell Chain. It's about the 5% strength while Unholy Pact is going. Whereas with this, basically, you can hit extra enemies and it just does growing damage. I think if they added something to Defile to give it even just secondary stats, like more mastery or something like that, I think it becomes a much better play in AoE situations. But for single target situations, I just think Unholy Pact is going to be better simply because of the strength increase while DT is going. We're also going to grab Reaping, which basically makes everything below 35% health hit that much harder, which we like. And then we have a couple of other talent points that we can go here. So we'll grab Eternal Agony, because I think that's going to be a valuable point here. And then we're also going to grab Plaguebringer, which is just allows your diseases to damage to occur more quickly. We want improved death coil because we're getting the extra damage out of death coil even if it doesn't seek out a nearby enemy. Actually, we're gonna skip this. We're gonna take improved death coil, 2 points in improved death coil, and then of course we're gonna prioritize our main things here. So we're gonna grab Gargoyle, Unholy Aura to do more damage from minions, and Commander of the Dead. So it kind of sets up a very specific build where you want to get your Gargoyle and your army out, and then you Dark Transformation Apocalypse. So there's a build setup for it that really makes the burst opener really good. Of course, we're going to grab Army of the Dead, Army of the Damned, and Super Strain. And then from here, you look at Ghoulish Frenzy, which basically makes your DT minion better. You get more attack speed while it's active, and more damage on it, and then you also get more damage on morbidity. Now, I think these talents are fairly interchangeable because we have Super Strain. You're getting 2% damage or 3% damage for each point, whereas here you're getting 6% damage for each point. So what a lot of people are kind of specializing in are going Ghoulish Frenzy to maximize your DT window, along with a point in morbidity, just to give you that extra damage on your diseases. There is the possibility that Coil of Devastation can also work. That's a point there that could be negotiated, I think, over things like maybe Eternal Agony. But I think DT increase along with the Ghoulish Frenzy synergies are just going to be really strong. So we're going to go ahead and apply these changes, and then I need a moment to set up all my bars and abilities. So I'm just going to ask for your patience while I do that real quick. So let's see. I usually do this here, this here, this here, Death Coil there. We're going to move Death and Decay there. Sacrificial Pact comes off completely. Rage Dead goes here. I put that there. Lichborn's going to go there. I'm going to put Gargoyle there. These can all go away. The Army of the Damned goes on 4 for me, and then Raised Dead goes there. So I have room for other stuff. Obviously AMZ comes down, Power of Rune Weapon's gonna come here, Death Strike goes there, Death Pact probably needs to go there, Death Gate will just stick over here for now. Dark Command, I'll put Shift V just in case I need to taunt Mythic Plus. Path of Frost, I stick there for fun. Rune Forging, we stick over there. Rage Walk goes there. Soul Reaper. I'll put here. There we go. And then in the Unholy Tree, I think I have everything on there. Yes, I do. Unholy Blight. I'm going to put on Shift. Actually, Unholy Blight, because I don't have Epidemic in this build, so like I said, this is almost like a pure single target setup, so I'm not going to do this. So, of course, we need to get our good friend Pebble Masher out here so that we can get him rolling with this. And so the build and the start that I think you're going to do is that you're going to Unholy Blight should apply all 3 diseases. So we Unholy Blight into a couple of Festering Strikes just to get our setup going for wounds. And then we're going to pop Gargoyle, Army, Gargoyle, Apocalypse, Dark Transformation so that we empower all of those ghouls. And then we'll kind of get into the kind of builder spender style that the single target normally is, where we're prioritizing spending runic power in this case. So let's go ahead and mess around with this. So we're going to start with into Army, into a couple Festering Strikes. So we're going to Apocalypse, summon Gargoyle, Dark Transformation, spam Death Coil. Now you can see I have 3 wounds going, so we're going to pop that. Go back in. Diseases are running out, so we'll pop those again. And we're basically, we got runic power to spend, so we need to spend it, especially since we're low on runes. So you can see we're just really ramping up our Gargoyle window here. Now that the gargoyle window is over, we're not prioritizing. I misplayed that a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to hit Empower Rune Weapon just to give us some more. Technically, you probably want to do that during the gargoyle window. I'm still kind of learning kind of how the playstyles go, guys, so just be patient with me while I figure that out. So we get all of our diseases back up. Ooh, it parried for some random reason. Oh wait, it's because parry is a thing. So as you can see, we got our windows back up. So we're going to Apocalypse, Dark Transformation. So the ideal setup here is that basically for every gargoyle window, you should be getting around 3, potentially 4. Get our diseases back up because I let them fall. Should be getting at least 3 to 4 Apocalypse and Dark Transformations. Of course, Soul Reaper you apply on cooldown here. Get more procs. We're gonna refresh diseases. Soul Reaper goes back up. We start popping some wounds, and we're gonna set up for our next Apocalypse, Dark Transformations. As you can see, these are they're a little off, I think, but for the most part, I think we're gonna be in a pretty good spot to have them be kind of ready to go with the next one. Now, Icy Talons is gonna be a little bit harder to maintain as Unholy, just because you don't generally prioritize spending stuff, but I mean, you're getting Runic Corruption. Let's do that, get our diseases refreshed, and now we need to start setting up for our next kind of gargoyle window. So we're gonna go ahead and get some wounds popped just to build up our runic power, keep our flow of damage going. Of course, we hit Soul Reaper because this dummy's basically 0 damage. So we got 10 seconds left on this. I'm holding cooldowns to combine them all again. Let's get our diseases back up. Let's Soul Reaper one more time. Alright, now we've got our windows up, so we're going to pop Gargoyle, pop Apocalypse, Dark Transformation, and we're just going to spam. Yes, I'm overcapping on runes right now, but we want to empower this thing to be as powerful as possible. So we're just spending almost all of our runic power very quickly on the gargoyle, which is now gone. So during those windows, it gets very powerful. Let's dismiss good old thing so we can tweak our talents. So as you can see, the core gameplay of just building and popping wounds doesn't really change that much. What you're trying to do is maximize your setup windows. So you should get 2 to 3 Apocalypse Dark Transformations for every summoned gargoyle, and then basically you get 2 summoned gargoyles for every Army of the Damned. You will have to hold cooldowns, as you can see, to line them all up and get them all set up correctly, which I think is fine. And then of course, as you get below 35%, you're just going to absolutely start chunking on targets. You're going to implement Soul Reaper into the rotation at that point to give you even more runic corruption, which allows for more runes coming back. So overall, I think this build is interesting. I think it's going to be fun. I think it'll be really good in single target. We'll see the tuning on it to see if it's actually the right viable build, but in terms of its potential, I see that it has a lot of potential in single target. It's just going to require very precise setting up of your windows. And then obviously things like dropping Death and Decay in the midst of all that, you still need to do just to give you that haste bonus, which I did not do there. It is going to be much more important as we come over here, because we're going to get on these more clumped up fellas here. I'm going to pick this training dummy. We're going to basically line up on these 3 dudes right here, because let's take a look at the wound build. So these talents over here for Mythic Plus, I don't think change all that much. You probably still want to grab March of Darkness as a general rule of thumb. Again, here you could skip Unholy Endurance for something like Grip of the Dead, which I'll go ahead and do. So I don't specifically see these. We'll grab things like Blinding Sleet, which I think is going to be more useful. We'll grab Crit Strike. We're going to grab Gloom Ward. We'll grab Will in the Necropolis. We'll grab Blood Draw and Runic Attenuation. But here we're actually going to skip Soul Reaper. Now I think this is only good for fortified weeks. I think you do take Soul Reaper in tyrannical weeks. You skip A-Bomb's Limb and go get Soul Reaper instead. But I think this is kind of generally speaking the build you would want to play on like fortified Mythic Plus. For tyrannical weeks, you probably just take out the Rune Mastery and A-Bomb Limb and go into Unholy Bond / Soul Reaper. For tyrannical, because obviously bosses are much more important on those weeks than they are on fortified. So we're looking at this from a fortified perspective. Alright, Festering Strike, Scourge Strike, all these things are going to be the normal here. Still taking Infected Claws, you're going to skip Runic Mastery, so I think you end up taking Festering Strike here, because you are going to be applying wounds a little bit more prevalently. Still taking Unholy Blight, still taking Apocalypse, still taking Sudden Doom. You can also grab All Will Serve in the single target build. I didn't talk about this earlier, but that is an option in this tree as well. Again, tuning is going to determine that. We're going to grab Epidemic, we're going to grab Pestilent Pustules, we're going to grab Replenishing Wounds and Bursting Sores, along with Plague Barrier, which is at least to me, a new ability that spreads your active number of wounds on single targets. We like that. We're going to, of course, grab Unholy Command and Eternal Agony. And then here you can actually grab Ruptured Viscera. Now this also heavily pushes into things like the Apocalypse Ghouls, the Army of the Dead Ghouls. This is an option I think for Mythic Plus and for the Gargoyle build as well, but I just think Magus of the Dead is just better. So we're going to go ahead and take it. We're also going to take Defile because I just want it to be good. Reaping, I think you take in tyrannical weeks, but I don't think you take it in fortified weeks. Just because, generally speaking, things aren't going to be below 35% health for that long on bosses for Soul Reaper, and for everything else that you got going on here. It's a possibility that you still take it, but for the build that I want to run, I don't think I have room for it. So, we've got Death Rot, we've got Festermite, and we've got Unholy Assault. Of course, we're going to grab Army of the Damned, Magus of the Damned, Super Strain, and then we're going to take 2 points in Morbidity, or take a point in Morbidity and a point in Ghoulish Frenzy. I think this is kind of the setup that I want for this. We're going to go ahead and take that, and I've got to add a couple more keybinds. So, we have Epidemic now goes, I think where Unholy Blight goes. Yeah, I think I'll do that build. Alright, so again, let's get our Ghoul Boy out here. And then for this, I think on big pulls, what you're going to do is, of course, you're going to want to lead with Army. You're going to come in, you're going to pop your damage. You're going to get your Apocalypse. You're going to do this. You're going to Festering Strike again, and then we're going to hit Spread, and then I'm going to drop Defile, and then you just Scourge Strike spam while spending your cooldowns on this. As you can see, keep your diseases up, spend on Defile to keep your wounds going. Like I said, I'm still kind of figuring out the windows, but now we have Defile back, so we're back into dropping it again, so we can spread these targets and these wounds around. So we're gonna do this, drop one on that, drop one on that. Again, we Epidemic to get everything going. But now we have our buddies back, so we're going to Apocalypse, Dark Transformation, and then we're gonna pop this to get wounds going and give us our haste window. Of course, we need to spend here. Unholy Blight, and we can now dance in Rune Weapon. As you can see, just the numbers are everywhere. Got Defile back, so we're going to drop it. Go there, go there. As you can see, like the build just really funnels in on Festermite. You can see I'm not even really getting true stack cleaved here, and I'm just stacking up the strength bonus. So overall, I think both builds have some potential. Unholy Pact, generally speaking, I think will work better than Defile does. I just want Defile to be good, so that's just kind of why I play it. But overall, my opinions on Unholy Death Knight, I really like the changes that they've made. Unholy's historically been one of my favorite DPS specs. It's kind of like Feral and Unholy are my two favorite melee specs in the game. Probably two of my favorite DPS specs ever, in current WoW at least. So this one video a little bit longer, 25 minutes. But I think just a lot to get into with Unholy and kind of the way their cooldowns revamped. But both DK DPS specs I think are in a really good place. Everything I've heard about Blood Death Knight is that it's in a really good place as well, at least from a feel standpoint. Obviously tuning is going to be a big factor in how often are you going to see these specs. But if you're looking for a main character that has different playstyle, either within a spec that you really like, or you just like having 3 to 4 different ways you could potentially play your melee DPS and have a tank to be a backup, or you're a tank main that wants some fun DPS on the side, I don't think you go wrong with Death Knight right now. I think it's in a really, really nice place. So until the next video, all, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you're having fun. You keep on gaming, and I will see you all in the next video.